Story 1. I punched a raccoon in the face while I was completely naked. My wife and I had dozed off happily. Then we were awoken by the racket of panicking chickens. I sprinted into the backyard without anything at all, just as primal as my many times great-grandfather caveman. I zoomed into the coop, threw the door open, and there, at waist level on a perch, was a raccoon who was annoyed about getting interrupted before he could arrange a chicken dinner. I went deeper into the coop so that the raccoon was between me and the open door, figuring it would F off, but instead it hissed and growled at me and did a little aggressive lunge toward me. So I panic punched it, full on, just to get it away from me. Sent him sprawling, and he bounced and then ran. Somehow I didn't have a scratch on me. I wish I'd thought to do a mighty yop or a caveman yell or something. Story 2. My husband and I were sunbathing on a mountain river outside Seattle. I was walking around collecting driftwood. A group of white water rafters suddenly came down the river. I was just standing there with a bunch of wood in my arms watching them go by. None of them saw us, but a few of them had GoPros attached to their helmets. It brings me great joy to think about them going through the footage and seeing a chick holding wood and awkwardly waving as they went by. Story 3. I did a backflip off a swing in my school's playground in the 8th grade, and somehow my belt or belt loops got caught on the little triangle ends of the seat, and it took my pants, underwear, socks, and shoes off mid-air. What a moment in time that was. Story 4. I got really drunk on my 21st birthday, blacked out, and woke up naked on the floor in my best friend's house. Her mom came down and said, "Oh, good morning. I didn't want to wake you," and handed me some clothes. Story 5. Jumping from one huge rock to another in the middle of the night with a man I just had sex with at this party by the shore in a storm. He was naked jumping around in front of me. I remember his moon-white butt cheeks flapping around in the cold sea breeze while trying to keep up with him. Today, 3 years later, I am lucky enough to share my bed with these beautiful cheeks. Story 6. Partied hard. Went on a 2-day binge party streak. Woke up on day 3 naked in bushes outside of some random apartments, with paper towels stuck to me everywhere. No idea what happened or how I got there. I walked home from the other side of town, then got stopped by the cops, told them what happened, and I got a talking to. And they dropped me off and asked if I wanted to file a report, then gave me a silver crinkle blanket. It was springtime in Central Texas, so wasn't bad as far as weather. More just like questioned how I did so many drugs and drank so much, that I blanked out on 2 full days. Missing my car, my wallet, and all of my stuff. My car was towed, and my pants were in my car. My car was found abandoned on the side of the road, parked at a weird spot downtown. So yeah, it was a mess. I'm 33 now, going on 34. I chilled out with that. Kind of want to meet a nice girl and settle down now. I am all partied out. That's not even the craziest story. Thanks everyone for the funny comments that made me chuckle. Don't be like me. You've gotta know your limits. Story 7. I was in a foreign country and needed medical treatment. The nurse told me, in very bad English, to take my clothes off. I did. I had no reason to question her. I was scared and confused and really tired. About 5 minutes later, a tech came in and was surprised. Turned out that in their native language, they say take off your shirt, but the nurse forgot the words and assumed I would know that if I'm having a weird heartbeat, I only need to take off my shirt for an EKG. Story 8. I was doing traffic control for road construction when I was like 20, in the middle of nowhere. It was literally like a road that went through the woods with nothing but farms here and there. I had to poop so bad, so I ran behind the farm and literally exploded everywhere. It was wretched. As I got done, I realized I didn't have toilet paper, but had a lot of clothes on because it was cold in the morning, but got warmer as the day progressed. I had a white tee underneath all my layers, so I stripped down and took the white tee off, so basically I'm naked all the way down to just my pants that were at my ankles. As I'm wiping, I look up, and the farmer is in his field on his tractor just looking at me, basically naked and wiping shit. I just looked at him and gave him the "I'm sorry bro" shrug. Had no choice. He gave me the "I ain't mad, I'm just disappointed" look. On a related note, a relative with irritable bowel syndrome was riding on a bus in South America. He had about an hour left to his house when suddenly his bowels acted up. He crossed his legs tightly and told his brother he needed to stop, and his brother told him to suck it up. No way he was going to make it. He told the bus driver, and the driver said not a chance he would stop. Finally, a designated stop arrived, and he ran out of the bus, begging the driver to wait 5 minutes while the driver whined and said he wouldn't. He ran to the first door he saw, which was a tiny corner bar. Bathroom door was boarded up. He ran out the back door of the bar and to the back door of the house next door. Knocked a few times, and no answer. So he rushed in and let go of the nastiest slime imaginable. But no toilet paper, and the toilet didn't flush. So he made do and left the nastiness in the toilet. As he walked out the back door, the owner arrived. It was an awkward exchange explaining that he had rushed in the guy's back door to poop, and then had to leave the filth where it landed. Then came the humble walk of shame as many people called out shitter as he made his way back to the bus and to an angry driver, followed by a 40-minute ride home. A few years later, he got a job, and who was his coworker? The owner of the house where he took a dump. Neither of them ever brought it up. Story 9. Downhill biking. Pants caught the side of a jagged rock face that had twigs and branches in between. Pants just tore right off. Took a good part of my underoos as well. Had to return home through the center of town. Thankfully it was getting late, so not a whole lot of people saw my dumb ass. Story 10. My ex was living in an apartment that was an old storefront converted into a living space, so there were no windows in her bedroom. She had found another place that she was waiting to move into. We were getting busy in her bedroom when she heard the front door open. She thought it was her mother, so she put on a robe to meet her in the living room, leaving me in pitch dark in her room. We had just started dating, and I wasn't familiar with her room yet. It was pitch black. I couldn't find the light switch or my clothes. It wasn't her mother stopping by for a surprise visit. It was her landlord who was showing the apartment to new potential renters, who happened to be a married couple. My ex failed to stop them from coming to the bedroom because she thought I'd be dressed. I was not. The door flung open, and the light switch I couldn't find came on, and I'm just standing there with my hands over my junk. I will never forget the look on their faces. Story 11. Was going through it on my 21st or 22nd birthday, and met up with some people I somewhat knew later in the night since my close friends were younger than me. Blacked out pretty much right when I met up with them. I woke up in a random bedroom I've never seen before, butt naked laying on top of the blankets. I find a blanket on the ground, so I use it to wrap myself up, and I open the door to the living room. I see this jacked shirtless dude I've never seen before eating cereal, and I'm like, good morning? He's like, "Sup, man? You came here with a couple of your buddies, and your buddy lives here. You passed out on his bed." I see my buddy I somewhat knew wake up from the couch, and I'm like, "Do you know where my clothes are?" He led me to the washer-dryer closet space, and my clothes were drenched in a puddle of piss. My piss. I then put them on and head straight home. Was super embarrassing, and that was the last time I've ever hung out with him. And the last time I've ever gotten that effed up. Story 12. Not really odd, just funny. I'm a guy. My flatmate at the time was a girl. Still is a girl, actually, and she was showering. Our cleaner at the time was a pervy Chinese dude, and he walked into the bathroom accidentally, but actually knowing full well she was in the shower. She ran out of the shower naked and into my room. For some reason, I had just gotten out of bed, so I was just standing there naked with my morning glory. She screamed, and I'm pretty sure I did too, because I did not expect to suddenly be naked in front of my naked flatmate. She laughed, I laughed, and we sacked the cleaner. Story 13. Was hanging out at my house that I shared with my girlfriend in college with some of her friends. We had all been drinking, and her friends decided to take off. My girlfriend and I decided to race to get naked. She bolted to the bedroom, and I, in the living room, ripped off my shirt and decided that the fastest way to get my pants off was both legs at the same time over my head on the couch. As I get them past my knees, I see her friend's horrified face between my legs. She had forgotten a snack and just ran back inside to grab it and got a full view of everything. She never looked me in the face again. Story 14. Turned board games into drinking games back in the late aughts. Found myself locked outside in the dark, naked in the backyard of the house that backed up to a massive cornfield, where the corn was at its peak. I just kind of hung out. It was a warm, windy night. I think my friends expected me to throw a fit and try to get back in, but the joke was on them. I needed a break from everything. Story 15. One night stand I met online. After we finished at her place and were naked in bed, the police rolled up and started pounding on the door. Apparently, she violated her probation. I did notice the ankle monitor, but it was like, crap happens, I guess. Then, I'm now hiding under the bed naked, and they come in the bedroom and yell at her, then saying they know someone else is in there with her, and I had to get up and out of there naked. Yep. Story 16. I think I can beat everyone here. For context, I am from a nation that has been at civil war since the 40s. Every male is either required to serve in the military for a period of time, or if you're exempt, you have to purchase your ineligibility, but draft dodging is fairly common. I don't live there, but we happened to be in the country around my 18th birthday. My parents had not warned me about any draft or anything like that. I had noticed a strong military presence in the city, but the country is notorious for crime and violence, so I never gave it a lot of thought. Fast forward to 1 week after school gets out, Mom and I are visiting my grandmother in a small town near the capital. We get off the public transport, and across the street was a military checkpoint, for lack of a better term, and they were stopping and asking males for something, detaining one every so often. The minute we got off the bus, my mom swears and tells me we need to go around the checkpoint before they notice me, which I'm like, but why though? By that point, it was way too late. One of the army guys had made a beeline for us and stopped us, asking me for my documentation, my age, and if I was still in school and could prove it. All I had on me at the time was my local ID, which I had just recently gotten since I had come of age during our time there. I didn't carry any American identification since it would be dangerous to be discovered as American. I show him my ID, and he asks for my military service papers or deferment. I obviously don't have anything like that. My mom tries to interject, telling him we don't live in the country, but the guy tells her essentially to shut the hell up and that he's talking to me and not her. I told him I don't have anything, but that I'm her only child. They don't draft only children. He says we can prove that later, and literally rounds me up and puts me in the back of this car along with like 6 or 7 other guys. My mom tries to talk to him and his supervisor. Zero luck. After like an hour or so, they leave, and we drive way the hell up north to some other small town. There's a military station there, and they put us all in a line with other guys around our age. Must have been at least 30 of us. After another hour or so, one by one they checked us into this room and had us line up along the walls. It wasn't particularly big, so by the time we were all in there was a man along every inch of every wall, and we were facing each other. An army doctor comes in and says he's going to do a physical to see if we're apt for military service. I gather up the courage to ask one of the other guys what that means, and he says they're going to check for varicose veins on our manhood. The doctor asks us to strip down to our boxers. We all nervously do so. He and an assistant fill out some paperwork, and I'm incredibly uncomfortable about the idea of having to be naked in front of this army guy and his assistant when the guy looks back and tells us all to drop our underwear. Everyone froze. He yells, "Now!" clearly frustrated. And boom. All across that room, everyone pulled their pants down. Mind you, we were all facing each other still, which is the most messed up thing I've ever experienced. But then this guy proceeds to go one by one, checking each guy for varicose veins, switching out the glove after each guy. I'm trembling, and this feels like it's taking forever. Some of the guys are laughing, making jokes about people's manhood, or how good another guy's cheeks look, and I'm just mortified, trying to cover up as best I can until it's my turn. Turned out I didn't have varicose veins, but one guy did, so the rest of the guys made a big deal about it, whistling and stuff. We were finally allowed to get clothed, and they took us into another room to do paperwork. And wait. I waited 2 more hours. Afterwards, a major comes in, gets me, and tells me I'm free to go and that my family is there to get me. One of my cousins was dating a general's son at the time, and my country basically runs on who knows who. My mom got everyone she could on the line until someone was able to get me out. In hindsight, it makes for a funny story, but at the moment, it was the worst stuff I had ever experienced. Story 17. I guess when I was a kid and traveling with my mom to Korea, probably visiting a bathhouse for the first time. Culturally, a very normal thing over there. But at the time, I had never seen non-family members naked before, and never had people outside the family, and my doctor, that had seen me naked before either. I haven't gone back since I was a kid, but if I were to return again, it would probably be like, whatever. Story 18. I was recently a model for a physical therapy workshop. These were all professionals familiar with patient modesty, and the drape I was given led me to believe I'd remain covered for the most part. I was in the middle of a room of about 20 observers, and the instructor was demonstrating some palpation on my abdomen for a few minutes. Then he had me stand up for the next demo, and he said, "Just take the drape off." So I did, leaving me standing naked in the middle of the room. Not only that, but I also agreed for some photos to be taken by the event host for publicity, and I heard a camera shutter soon after the drape came off. Talking with some of the PTs later in breakout groups, I learned that I wasn't the only one to be surprised with the sudden nudity. They were all respectful and sympathetic though, so I felt comfortable fairly quickly. Story 19. Took a break midway through a hike at a local provincial park. I was hot and sweaty, so I went skinny dipping in this small creek, just deep enough to come up to my waist at its deepest point. Just as I got to this point in the water, around the corner came a canoe with 2 people in it. It was too close for me to get out of the water. Had to just stand there butt naked, waist deep in the creek while these 2 people paddled within 2 feet of me. Story 20. Basic training. We walked through a wasp nest. Several of us got stung. Those of us stung had to go to the hospital to make sure we weren't allergic. I got checked and walked out of the room to where my drill sergeant was talking to the first attractive female I'd seen in a month. As he's telling me something, I've no idea what it was, I feel something in my pants. Without a second thought, I stripped down to ACUs around my ankles and I lifted my thing and snatched the wasp that was underneath my balls stinging me. The drill sergeant was shook. I was naked. The nurse had her hand over her mouth. I said something along the lines of, I'm gonna need to get this checked, with my thing still hanging out in the middle of the hospital hallway. Joke's on everyone in my platoon. I got a hot nurse to touch my during basic, and all it cost was a wasp sting to the gooch. Story 21. Was robbed during brothel service. We were done, and I wanted more time, so I went to grab my bag, which had $12K inside. And it was gone. I ran out of the room naked, freaking out about the situation. 3 huge tattoo-covered men in leather vests came out from the back, picked me up while I'm kicking and screaming for my money, and threw me out onto the pavement. It was 7 a.m. in the morning, so everyone was walking toward the train station right next door. Had no choice but to ask a fellow commuter where the nearest cop shop was, and ran there holding my treasure downstairs.